Welcome back to CryptosRUs. I'm George, or all George. So, happy Sunday. A lot happened this weekend, and a lot more is going to happen this coming week, including our buddy Jerome Powell. He may make a move. Also, I want to cover what Warren Buffett and his counterpart Charlie Munger just said about Bitcoin and cover some other important things. So let's get started. Smash it a like, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit that notification bell to get notified of all my streams. Also, follow me on social media. Check out CryptosRUs.com and follow a brand new CryptosRUs Clips channel. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hopefully you guys are hanging in there. Right before I started streaming, you could see that Bitcoin had a little bit of a pump right above 38.5 once again. Could be because I just dollar cost average, or it could be that Do Kwon did, or it could be someone else did, but someone did just buy a whole lot of Bitcoin. So we are barely clinging on to that 38.5 once again. So this weekend, we did have some, not so good stuff happen. Bitcoin fell down to about 37.4, then kind of hovered around 38, and now we're a little bit higher. So that's good. But altcoins, altcoins just took an absolute beating. And Bitcoin dominance is even higher than when I streamed yesterday. It was at 42 yesterday, and now it's 42.2. So the altcoins that sold off hasn't really recovered, and Bitcoin is showing a little bit more strength. And the question mark will be, what will happen this week? What will happen this week? Well, let's see what will happen with this, because the FOMC meeting is about to start. It's going to start on Tuesday. It's going to end on Wednesday, and there will be a decision made on rate hike, right? So we know Jerome Powell, he's under a lot of pressure right now to curb inflation, yet he realizes that the GDP has come down, housing strength has gone down, labor force seemingly like it's still holding, at least the last few numbers, right? But he has to do something, and many people think that he's going to raise rates by 50 basis points, which is half a percentage, right? So there's a lot of things happening this week, but this is the one thing that everyone will be looking at. The reason why Wall Street sold off last week, it sold off so hard last week, is because of this meeting. All right? People, I would figure by now that 50 basis points is a locked, it's a sure thing, right? So if it comes, it should not be a surprise. If it doesn't come and Powell backs off and says, okay, let's just do 25 basis points for now, maybe 50 basis points later. If he does that, the market should rally significantly hard because it should be already priced in, right? What would shock me is if he comes in at 50 basis points and the market still dumps, because this has been talked about for weeks now, if not months, that this 50 basis points will come. So that will be the big highlight of this week, right? But what does that mean for Bitcoin and crypto, right? Well, I think Bitcoin is showing its true colors right now. The fact that it didn't dump that hard on Friday when the markets dumped, it didn't actually dump nearly as hard as the entire NASDAQ or S&P index last week, shows you something, right? And there are still many people that really believe in Bitcoin, like I do, because of all the goodness that is supporting it, right? And I have some of those goodness to show you today too, right? But unfortunately, the altcoins, the faith just isn't quite there. Especially a lot of the smaller caps, they're selling off even more. Micro caps, forget about them. They have dumped to basically nothing, right? Mid caps is also showing weakness. The only ones that's showing some signs of life are really the big caps that are holding, I guess, relatively well compared to others, but still not nearly as well as Bitcoin, right? So during these times, it's going to be hard. And it could be harder depending on how the market reacts this week. But Bitcoin will come through, and all these fantastic projects that may be down right now, they will recover. Well, not everyone, but the ones that are good, the ones that continue to execute, that continue to form partnership, continue to grow their ecosystem, the ones that won't give up despite the FUD, they are the ones that will come back stronger than ever. So don't give up on them. All right, so I did want to start with this, okay? So this will be absolutely the most important thing of this week when it comes to markets. And it's not just going to affect the U.S. markets. It's going to affect world markets, and it's going to affect the crypto market as well. So big thing to look at. Now, before I get into some of the goodness of Bitcoin, I did want to talk about this because a lot of people were talking about it. So Warren Buffett, we know, one of the greatest investors we have within the century, I guess, right? He just made new comments about Bitcoin. So he explains why he does not like Bitcoin. He doesn't try to tear Bitcoin down, at least. He doesn't say it's rat poison square, or what his counterpart Charlie Munger said, that actually I'll just read what Charlie Munger said first because it's entertaining. Where is it? In my life, I try to avoid things that are stupid and evil and make me look bad. And Bitcoin does all three. So Munger's still not a fan of Bitcoin. But Warren Buffett, I'm just going to summarize what he said. He made a couple examples. How if you owned 100% of farmland in the U.S. and you want to sell them 1%, you would gladly buy it for $25 billion. If you owned all the apartments in the U.S. and you offered him 1% of it, he would buy it for $25 billion. Easily. No question asked. He would do it. But if you offered all the Bitcoin in the world and you offered to him for only $25, not even $25 billion, he would turn it down. Because he says farms will produce something. They will always produce something. Apartments will produce rent, right? But Bitcoin produces nothing, which is why he will never buy Bitcoin. That's his rationale. And he's like, I don't care if it goes up in the next 5, 10, 100 years. He will not be getting in Bitcoin, right? So that's his explanation. It's probably the same reason why Berkshire Hathaway doesn't invest in, I guess, if you look at it like Google, right? Because what does Google produce? I mean, search engines and ads, it's all digital stuff, right? It's not like food, right? Bitcoin is the same thing. Bitcoin could be mined and you're earning something for that. You can lend it out and earn interest on it, right? So there are things that Bitcoin could also produce, but what he's missing out on is this fantastic and arguably the most secure network we have today that could be used to send payments worldwide, like right now to Ukraine instantly, Ukrainians, right? How do you measure that? What does it cost to build a network like that is unhackable, can be used to send payments worldwide almost instantaneously and almost feeless with the Lightning Network, right? That has to account for something. You can't just say just because that doesn't produce anything, that means nothing. Do you know how hard it is to produce that? That is not easy. And something that's not controlled by any government. Try to produce something that isn't controlled by any government. Doesn't matter where you live. In the US, in the UK, in Australia, Japan. Try to create something where the government will not control you, right? And Bitcoin has gotten to that stage where it really can't be controlled because no one owns it. That in itself is nearly impossible if you think about it. Yeah, Warren Buffett doesn't treasure that as worth anything, right? So unfortunately, I don't think within his lifetime he is going to change his mind. I believe Warren Buffett is 91 right now, 91, 92. and Charlie Munger's like 98, 99. So unfortunately, I don't think these guys will ever come around. But you know, that's just how it is. I see things differently. I think many people do also. There are some what Peter Schiff likes to say, intrinsic value, where Peter will still argue there's no intrinsic value. But the things I just said, having a global decentralized network that's completely secure and unhackable and not controlled by any governments, that in itself has the most intrinsic value if you think about it. And to replicate it is literally impossible these days if you think about it. All right. Well, with that said, I just want to get that off my chest. I just want to explain that a little bit. What else is going on in the world of crypto, or I should say Bitcoin? Well, the liquid supply is still going up. Okay, this has not changed. Even though Bitcoin has sold off from its high of 69,000, you could see there is no red since 69,000. Since Bitcoin came down from 69 to where we are about 38.5, you could see the liquid supply, illiquid supply, is actually increasing more and more so. That tells you something. That tells you that there are a lot of people that are still buying and holding, and they are not giving up on Bitcoin despite the price going down. They don't care. They don't care. And we still have a lot of whales that are still buying OTC market and also contributing to this. There are just too many holders at this point that believe, especially after 2021, after seeing what the governments did around the world, how they printed money out of thin air like it was monopoly money. The world's global, the U.S. money supply went up like, I don't even know the latest count. Last time it was 40%. 40% of the world's USD supply went up within a year. Now it could be up to 50 or 60%. I don't even know the latest number, right? People are starting to recognize that the endless printing is going to have effect. Maybe not right now. Temporarily, we needed it. But long term, it's going to bring on massive inflation. And compounded with supply chain issues, compounded with the war that's going on, right? You need something to park your money in, because fiat is not the way, at least not completely, right? So that is the reason why liquid supply keeps going up. And the only reason why you saw this big red dip, you know why? Because that was when the miners were kicked out from China. So they had no choice but to liquidate and dump, because they were told to get the hell out. That's the only reason why you saw that big thing in the middle right there. Otherwise, it would be relatively small like the other periods. So liquid supply is important because it shows you that Bitcoin is coming out and not coming in. And there's less and less of it on the exchanges. So still very healthy. Very healthy indeed. Now, from a TA perspective, I saw someone draw this. And I definitely see a correlation there, because when Bitcoin in 2021 fell down to 28,000, it looked bleak, it looked bad, and then boom, we had a sudden reversal, right? And you look at the two, the time period in 2022 is a little bit longer, because we're now going through like what, 4 months now, 5 months. So obviously a little bit longer than the 3 months back in 2021, but there are similarities. I don't know if this is accurate or not, but just thought it's interesting show. This also was posted by Will Komet on Twitter, showing the Bitfinex whales. You may have heard of Bitfinex whales, because there are a lot of whales on Bitfinex, and they have a ton of buys set right around 38,000. A ton. You can see the heat map on the right side. I mean, this is the reason why Bitcoin is holding so strong at 38,000, and that's because the whales are buying and buying and buying and buying as much as they can around 38,000. So that is one of the reasons why, locally, why 38,000 has been so strong, right? And lastly, I want to show you guys this. 10 years ago, Bitcoin Magazine created this, the very first magazine about Bitcoin and about Satoshi and corruption and everything else that we're still talking about today. But back then, when Bitcoin was worth like a few bucks, this was sold for 1 BTC. 1 BTC. And you may have heard of people say 1 BTC equals 1 BTC, right? And it is true. It is true. It doesn't matter if you have 1 BTC at $1 or $10 or $100, $1,000, 10,000, 100,000. 1 BTC is 1 BTC. And in the future, when you can buy things directly with Bitcoin, and we are no longer using, say, the dollar, we're not measuring things in dollars, right? That's when everything is measured in sats. Well, think about it. Then that holds even more true, because all the Bitcoins that you have, doesn't matter if the price fluctuates up or down, that's how much you have to spend, right? So that's why DCA and long-term holding, this is the true way. You're earning sats. You're paying for sats, and those sats will be with you forever. Well, until you pass away. But you within your lifetime, right? And those sats are getting more valuable over time as everything else is getting devalued. And whatever you have is whatever you have. If that makes sense. All right. Now, what else is going on in the world of crypto? Well, unfortunately for Solana, not good things, because Solana just had a 7-hour outage after the network failed to reach consensus. One of the biggest problems with Solana right now, besides its heavy allocation towards VCs or with VCs, they seem to have network issues all the time, and it keeps getting restarted all the time. And this can't be, if you're creating a network that's meant to support thousands to tens of thousands of millions of apps, you can't have it restart all the time, right? It's just not acceptable. So their explanation is there's some botting that's going on in this Metaplex candy machine program. And, that's the problem they have. Solana has this issue with bots and flooding the network with spam. And I guess this is the reason. So they're go patch it up, right? And what makes this situation is worse is the Solana co-founder just came out and said that he believes Bitcoin needs to change the proof of stake to remain relevant. So horrible timing that he actually just came out and said this while Solana goes down for 7 hours. Has Bitcoin ever gone down for 7 hours? No, it has not, right? So this is the problem with a lot of the new chains, and I'm not just picking on Solana, but because Polygon also had network outages recently too, right? A lot of these new chains, they're still not quite battle tested, even though there's a lot of liquidity, there's a lot of dApps and DeFi going on, but there's not a whole lot of, transactions, or they haven't lived through a lot of these bot attacks or spam attacks or hacker attacks, right? And we still see a lot of them get hacked, right? Like Kronos had their bridge hacked for 600 something million, right? So these things are still happening right now. But the good thing is, like I said at the beginning, these are the projects that are not going to go away. They're not going to just say, okay, we're done. We're going to give up. Well, at least not most of them. Some have. So these are the ones that are still working at fixing these issues and still trying to grow and adopt like they should, right? But it does show you how early things are, that things like this can still happen, right? And that there's still more coming, good and bad. But I would say as long as they continue to execute, it's going to be good long term, because just like Apple and Microsoft and Amazon in the early days, they had their setbacks. They had a lot of setbacks, a lot of issues, but they solved them. They worked through them, and now they are where they are, right? And some of these guys will become the next powerhouses of the decentralized future, right? So just want to make that example. All right, what else is there? Obviously, yesterday, Yuga Labs did sell their other side NFTs. The minting was so crazy that at some points in time, it was like 7,000 to mint other deed. It has come down, but it was going nuts. But anyways, Yuga Lab cashed in about 300 million for themselves. A ton of minting happened, about 50,000 plus like 20,000 or 30,000 mints from ape holders, right? But they recognize that this minting gas issue is not good. And that is why they are talking about how they will come out with their own chain. Or thinking about it at least. Most likely they're going to do it. They already have ApeCoin. So they're thinking about creating their own chain. Maybe it's going to be a layer 2, or maybe it's their own, or maybe it's going to be a side chain on Polygon or a subnet on Avalanche. We don't know at this point. But man, that was insane. The miners, look at how much they made within a single hour. It's more profit than the whole year combined. Actually, the last probably 2 years combined. Maybe in the history of Ethereum, that's how much the revenue was. 87 million, right? I mean, if you look at the peak, this is more than all the other peaks combined. So, and in terms of burning, Ethereum burned $200 million, about 72,000 ETH, just from that period alone, right? So that did happen. Unfortunately, though, I kind of said this, ApeCoin could come down afterwards, and it certainly did, and it got brutal yesterday. Right now, it's, I think, something around $17, $17.50, somewhere around there, right? It is still obviously higher from its base of $9, $10, but it did come off from its peak of 22-ish. But I do think after it finds its base, and especially with Yuga looking to come out their own coin, and I'll probably use ApeCoin as gas on that chain, there's definitely more potential that's coming. So just want to talk about that. Also, what isn't a surprise but will disappoint some is Anchor, starting from today, is going to be lowering their rates from 19.5, that juicy 19.5, down to 18%. And they already said this, that the Anchor earn rate will adjust every month, either by 1.5% up or down. The good thing is, I didn't know this until recently, they did set a floor, because many people think, well, this will keep going down until it goes down to like 10 or below. No, they have set a floor so that if it does keep going down, right, the floor is 15%, and the ceiling is at 20%. So the most this could go down to 15. And if you think about that in terms of stablecoin rates outside of the liquidity pool, this is still going to be the best, right? 19.5 to 18 sucks. We'd lose 1.5%, but still, it's more than most out there. And then lastly, for Fantom, so why Fantom dropped so significantly? I mean, it turns out it's really due to this one guy, Roosh, who was about to get liquidated for 50 million. And the reason why is because he took out a loan against whatever stack he has. I don't know who he is or what. He took a loan against it, left it in there, and because Fantom started coming down, he was going to get liquidated, but it turns out that the whole chain's liquidity couldn't cover it, so he had to get an emergency loan. I mean, it's just a really wild situation. But that's the reason why Fantom dropped so much, and why there was this issue with Fantom FUSD peg being out of line, because the network didn't have enough liquidity to cover it, something like that. So yeah, it kind of sucks. Fantom, I think, is recovered slightly from this. A lot of things are recovered slightly from yesterday. But again, it goes to show you how young some of these chains are. Things, when things are good, you don't hear about any of this stuff, right? When things are going up, you don't hear about, you don't have you hear about liquidations or lack of liquidity or network outages really, or no one cares about it. Everything's going up, right? But true color come out when things are going down. When things are bad, that's how you know whether or not some of these projects are great and they will get through it or they won't last, right? So just to show you. All right, that is pretty much it. Overall, Bitcoin is still 38.5, right? I think this 38.5 is pretty important. I just showed you guys this whales buying about 38,000, right? But I think if we could hold here, which has been a pretty good support, you can see I'm zooming out here, has been pretty good support since about February. So we've been holding here approximately 3 months. And you could make the case, and I will make the case, that even though it looks like Bitcoin has been going down, I can make the case that it has basically stayed where it is since January 21st. Because that's when Bitcoin first hit about 38.5, it went below, went above, then we stayed here, above, down here, right? So bottom line is this. We are still at the same level as January 21st. So which means we're about 3 months in, or closing in at 4 months, where Bitcoin is basically going sideways, not really down. So think about that. I know everyone concentrates 69,000. I get it. 69,000 down to 38.5. I get it. That's a big drop. But since basically January, basically the beginning of the year till now, Bitcoin has been pretty much going sideways. But if you measure that against the NASDAQ, you measure it against tech stocks, you measure it against pretty much anything, they have fared much, much worse, right? So Bitcoin, I would argue, is still holding strong, but I would love to see it stabilize here, hold above here, right? And build above, which I think it will, because all the metrics still support it, and none of those metrics have turned negative or sideways or even down. They're all still heading up, and that is what I'm focused on. All right, guys, that's pretty much it. Let's do some Q&A. Fear and Greed Index. It's 22. So I'm actually surprised. I actually thought that Fear Index would go lower because of how much the altcoins sold off, but it's actually a little bit higher now than yesterday. So, but overall, we haven't dropped in the teens. We haven't seen teens in a very long time, and nor do we want to see the teens. 20s are still pretty low. You could see, right? We've been hovering 20s for a little bit. Just a few brief periods in early January where it fell below to about 10. But yeah, about the same. About the same. Ava Luna says it should be 10. Yeah, I honestly, I thought we would be in the teens because it was looking pretty bad. But Dan Perez, what's up, Jorge? What's up? Storm Detector, I bought at bottom yesterday. Great, all prices all around. Yes, I think a lot of altcoins are struggling right now and probably will continue to struggle for quite some time while there's a lot of macro and geopolitical stuff that we have to worry about, right? But like I said, the great projects that don't give up, they will come back stronger than ever. Most of these projects that you see today, they started in 2018, 2019, 2020, and, they were down. They were down. Some down 90%, 95%, 99%. And they came back stronger than ever because they did not give up. They simply didn't. And that's why they are the big caps of today. And some are the mid caps of today, right? They just refuse to give up. And those are the projects, and you'll know which ones they are because they will give you continuous updates within their blog on Twitter. They will have Twitter spaces. They will continue to have their annual or quarterly meetings. They'll have their hackathons. They'll have their meetups, and they'll continue to do so and show you their roadmaps and how they're, you know, working geared towards that, you could tell these projects are just not ones that give up. Others, you know, they just kind of disappear, and that's, you know, that's a red flag. The future of CRO. Well, I like CRO. I don't think they'll give up. You can see my two dogs in the background. I did buy a puppy, by the way, recently. Um, I think CRO will do just fine. I mean, they're one of the big guys now. They have a ton of money. Their Kronos chain, right, is still growing. Good amount of TVL. So I think they're going to be just fine. Bought a lot of Cosmos and Luna. I think I'm actually quite surprised. Like yesterday, I was making a note that Solana and Terra and Avalanche, they sold off huge yesterday, like 10%. Like there was no reason. Bitcoin was holding strong, and they all sold off. I think they were all pulled down by Fantom. I think a lot of people were scared off by Fantom and their FUSD peg being out of whack, and people were associated with the other chains. But I mean, there was no reason for them to sell off so hard, right? So whenever you see stuff like that, it's just like, hey, you know, it's a pretty good buying opportunity, even though you don't know if that's bottom or not. The point of DCA is you just don't know, and you don't care because you're just DCAing, dollar cost averaging over the long haul. Do your research on CRO. Customers are dumping the coin due to changes on the rewards. Well, if that was the case, it could be because they are down 9-10%, right? I did see, if you're talking about staking rewards, that's obvious because I've already said this. The SEC went to BlockFi, shut them down, went to Celsius, shut them down in terms of interest accounts, right? They will go to Kronos and they will go to Gemini and Voyager, shut them down too, right? So that is predictable, right? But with that said, there's still an $8.3 billion project, right? So you're kind of making it sound like, oh, they're gonna sell off to nothing. No, they're still a $8.3 billion project, which is still right neck and neck with Polygon. So they are still a very big project. Yeah, the SEC. You know, this is why you guys know I'm not the biggest fan of XRP, but I do wish Ripple wins that lawsuit. I really do. I don't want the SEC to overstep. I want Ripple to actually win so that others can protect themselves, right? So others can basically follow the same playbook and not be bullied around by the SEC. Worst project overtaking Chainlink, so that's not good. Yeah, I mean, yes and no, but realize Chainlink is not really a L1. It's an Oracle, and it's just not very sexy, I guess. You know, Chainlink has a lot going for it. It's connected to basically every chain, every DeFi project. A lot of DeFi projects, almost every single DeFi project uses their random generator and uses their Oracle setup to fetch prices. And they're going to come out their bridge too. It is a really good project. And there's no Oracle that's anywhere close to it. But with that said, they don't really support dApps. And they don't have DeFi of their own. Although I think it's speculated they want to go in that direction. But they're just not as exciting as the others. They don't have as much going on, which is why when things are bad, people tend to overlook them. Is Luna L1? Yes, it is. It is. Jewel is back to $2. That okay, George? I don't know what you mean by okay. Seems like, I don't know, at least one person was very mad. Someone that was in the chat and wrote to me saying, oh, you got this whole DeFi Kingdoms thing wrong, and you said this wrong, and this wrong. Bottom line is this, that Frisky Fox guy is gone, okay? He's gone because he made a mistake. Jewel dropped because they made many mistakes and lost the trust of the people. You could dance around the situation all you want, but they lost the trust of the people, which is why it crashed to $1.50 yesterday, right? So I've said I'm out of the project. I wish them well. I still have a ton of jewels staked or locked because I didn't play the quest to unlock them. So I hope they can figure it out. And supposedly they're going to get, they're going to get their whole thing audited, and they're going to bring in a new leader and stuff like that, which they should, because if you want to continue the project, you need to do that, right? But bottom line is, I think a lot of people that really depended on them or trusted them have just lost faith. That's why they sold, right? Can they come back? Maybe. But I think they're going to have a hard journey coming back. See, all these people come in. Don't blame DeFi Kingdom. So, who do you blame then? Thought premature. Hey, I've been in DeFi Kingdom since $20, right? Actually, I got in a little bit before it got up to 20. And I created a video about staking, and I staked for 6 months. And I was still staking, even up until about 2 days ago, right? And even though it dropped to $5 with the rewards, with Crystal Ball, with the expansion to Avalanche, I've been a big supporter because I think they've done a tremendous job to help Harmony. And I think they helped Avalanche as well, right? So it's not like I wasn't participating and I wasn't part of it. I was. But the fact that it dropped from 5 to 2 looked suspicious. And then from 2 down to 1 something looked even more suspicious. And then all that came out with all this stuff, right? About early unlocking and about this other liquidity provider, all this stuff, right? So it's not a good look. Not for me, at least. And others can continue to support the project, which is fine. I think they still have a chance to do very well after all coming out of all this. But for me, it's no more. And after I pulled everything out, I think I was still up to the point where like Jewel was still around like $5. But after yesterday, I don't know how much I lost after pulling that out. But I don't know. Maybe if you calculate the unlocked jewels or the locked jewels, I don't know. Maybe I do break even after I can unlock them. Thoughts on the housing market moving forward? I think it's going to go down. I mean, it's pretty obvious. When the interest rates are going high and higher each and every month, you know that demand is going to slow down. All this talk about how housing market would do just fine because the demand is so high and the lack of supply. Well, I'll tell you, the demand is going to go away very soon when 30-year mortgage rate interest is at 8-10%. It's going to go away real fast. When things were down like 2.5%, 2.3%, right? You're basically getting a 30-year mortgage for free. Now it's at like 5.3, 5.5, and soon it'll be at 6, 7, 8. You know demand is going to come down, right? You just know. It's just you put 2 and 2 together. Let's see. Sold dead, 2 outages, can't scale. It doesn't need to scale. It's already at 65,000 transactions per second. But they can't handle bot or spam attacks. That's what's happening. Every single outage is due to some kind of spam attack, and they just can't This one is different, but it's still kind of related. So I don't think they're dead because they're still sitting at number 6 right now. So no, they're not dead. They will figure it out, hopefully. But it's not a good look when their founder comes out and says Bitcoin needs to switch to proof of stake to survive, when Bitcoin hasn't had a network outage in forever. Crypto Grady, appreciate that. Yield nodes made simple. I've never heard that project before. Joshua, appreciate it. Litecoin has a finite supply, 84 million. Yeah, it's just 4x of Bitcoin, in case you didn't know that. The DXYs rose to 103 and surpassed the March 2020 value. I hope for a repeat of this scenario. You mean when it came down and then crypto pumped? I think I've covered that, and I think that could happen. Obviously, nothing goes up forever, but right now, what's driving DXY up is the war. Because if you look at what the USD is compared to, they're all falling because of the war. Russia is threatening to cut off gas and oil to Europe. So luckily we're heading into summer, but if we were heading into winter, that would be pretty bad. And they're forcing them to pay in rubles, which they don't want to, right? So there's a lot of uncertainty there. So that is why DXY is going up, because USD is getting stronger. But can things flip? Sure, they could. Maybe the war ends. Maybe Putin calls it quits. Who knows? You know, if that happened, the DXY will fall drastically. Markets will rally and everything will be splendid. But I don't know if that's going to come anytime soon. Richard, are you talking about Litecoin? I've explained this about Litecoin, and you take Charlie's rug pull out of it. You take everything, this endless promise of Mimble, Wimble, whatever. You take that all out. Just ignore all of that. Here's the reason why you should not be in Litecoin, because Litecoin has not done nearly as well as Bitcoin over the last 5 years, right? So quite simply, you could look at it this way. Even if you go back to 2017 high, Bitcoin was at 20,000, right? Or 19.8 or whatever it was. So we are double of that. Even with our funk right now, we are at least double of 2017 high. What was Litecoin's high in 2017, 2018, whatever it peaked at? It was like $300, $400. And right now it's at 100. So versus the high from, 5 years ago, it's down 75%, while Bitcoin is up 100%. And that's the reason why Litecoin is sitting at 21, because it has been losing strength. So why would you hold on to Litecoin when the obvious choice is Bitcoin? It's a better store of value. It's a better appreciating value or appreciating asset, okay? So why would you hold on to Litecoin? So you take all that other stuff out, right? No emotions, just purely judging on performance. Why would you hold Litecoin? You'd much rather hold Bitcoin. Some people think the DXY looks bullish for the next decade. I don't know. That's beyond me. I'm not the biggest expert when it comes to DXY, but I've looked at, you can pull it up yourself. Let's just pull it up here. Let's do DXY. I don't believe DXY is going to go up for the next decade, but We'll see. DXY is at 103 right now. It actually got as high as 103 point something. 103.9, almost 104. Okay, you go back, right? The last 2 times, this goes back to 2017, was right around here. The high of 2017 was about 103.7. It didn't go to 104, right? So we are exactly at the same point in 2017. And this was the beginning of the year, 2017, and Bitcoin started coming up as soon as the DXY started coming down. So, and the same thing over here. In April of 2020, when Bitcoin had that Black Swan event, start recovering when DXY went down. So we could be seeing that. But if you go back and you zoom out even more, you'll see that DXY has been higher before. I don't know what happened here in 85. I guess the stock market, I don't know if there's a huge stock market crash or some kind of recession in 85. I mean, DXY got up to 160 something. And then then time after that in 01, it went up to 120. But we haven't seen those levels since 2001. So 21 years ago. I mean, can we see DXY pump up to 120? I guess theoretically, because it has happened before. But you go back to 2017, this is the highest it's been since 2017, right? We are at that same point. And we do have some kind of retracement down. It could definitely help investments like crypto overall. But something interesting to pay attention to. Mike Warren, thank you. Appreciate it. BNB holding stronger than most altcoins. Not a single YouTuber talking about it. I don't know. Because people like to hate on Binance. That's why. I've created videos before. I've talked about Binance a lot. You know, one of the other things is, first of all, BNB is so strong because Binance. Okay, there's no doubt about it. Binance still does burning, quarterly burns. I think they change it so it's not even quarterly burns. It's just burning whatever. And they will get that supply down basically by half, which will help. Also, Binance Smart Chain. Binance Smart Chain, I will say, is this. They are behind. They were behind for a long time. And they had their own issues too. And people argue they're not decentralized. So Binance Smart Chain, I think they just renamed it to Binance Chain. And they're implementing a lot of protocols and making it more scalable, more decentralized, a lot of things. Okay. So I think that's also one of the reasons why they were held back, because people like to hate on Binance and said it's not a decentralized chain and all that stuff, right? But man, you can't discount. At one point in time, I thought Binance Chain, BNB, was going to surpass Ethereum because that's how strong they were. They were on fire. And PancakeSwap and Venus and others, they had more volume than Uniswap and MakerDAO at the time. And they were increasing their TVL like crazy once upon a time. But then Ethereum adapted and Binance Chain didn't. But now they are starting to. But even with that said, look at how strong they are. They're still double the size, double the market cap of Solana and Terra. You could put Terra and Solana together, still would not be the market cap of Binance Coin, right? So it kind of shows you, yeah, it is very overlooked. Very overlooked. Golden State or Memphis, I really would like to see. I like Ja, but I'm not a big Memphis guy, but I'd love to see them defeat Golden State. What do you think about the roller coaster Lego? I have it. It's really nice. It's really nice. It takes a long time to build and it's tedious because of all the pillars, but yeah, it's nice. Brian, you just named a whole bunch that I have no clue on. Probably because they're way too small and too new. Can they be rug pulls? Yes. Yes, they can. So be careful. Whenever you get into a yield project or a liquidity pool that seems a little bit too good to be true, or they're a bit too new and there's not much known about them, be careful because there could be rug pulls. You just don't know. Litecoin is good for transactions. Well, okay. I mean, Bitcoin transactions are so cheap now. I don't know why. I mean, they're a little bit faster, yes. But you could argue, well, then use XRP or Stellar for transactions too. They're just as good. If you're talking about transactions between exchanges or whatever, I mean, they're fast too. All right, guys. Overall, we're starting a new week. It'll be quite interesting what happens on Wednesday. That big FOMC meeting. What is Powell going to do? Don't know. And how is the market going to take it, more importantly? But right now, what I do know is Bitcoin is strong. Bitcoin is continuing to hold, and the metrics still indicate it is on the right path. So Bitcoin is definitely going to come out of this. It will get through it, and we need to be patient and continue to hold. As for altcoins, I know that a lot has sold off. Good buying opportunity whenever they do, right? But I think it's important to focus on the ones that truly will survive, the kind of like the bear trend we're in, right? And the ones that do will come out stronger than ever. So, all right, guys, smash the like, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys. I don't think I'm streaming tonight unless something happens. But if I don't stream, then I'll see you guys tomorrow, bright and early, 8:15 a.m. Central Standard Time. All right, take care, guys. Bye-bye.